I'm standing outside what used to be called the rectory because it's the house the church provided for the rector, or the main minister of the church. This one hasn't been lived in by a rector for 100 years, but it did house the families of two Little Trinity rectors, Reverend Alexander Sanson from 1852 to 1904, and Canon H.C. Dixon from 1907 to 1927. After Canon Dixon retired, the new rector, Reverend Widdows, already had his own house, and the building was rented out for office space for a while, until in 1933, Reverend Widdows saw a notice in the newspaper from the Toronto Council of Women, which was seeking a suitable facility for a project to assist women manage their households in the face of the growing unemployment and poverty that was overtaking the city. He contacted its president, Mrs. J.P. Hines, and a short time later, the Little Trinity Housekeeping Centre was born. As the Daily Star described the house at this point in its history,
"The roof lets in the rain, the plaster is falling, yet it breathes the spirit of neighborliness, in a time when neighborliness is so much needed. It is an unkempt old house, after 10 years lying idle in a district of down-at-the-heel houses. But the women of Toronto see possibilities in it."
Using donated wallpaper, paint, labour, kitchen tables, stoves, curtains and teacups, the centre was open and ready to teach neighbourhood women how to can fruit by July of that year. The well-to-do women who provided the volunteer instruction and assistance were surprised that the women of the neighbourhood knew nothing about making preserves, and rather dismayed that the jars of cherries that were prepared and sent home were eaten immediately instead of being saved for the winter. The centre's mission quickly evolved from a type of home economics program to a neighbourhood centre, with quilting, sewing, a reading club for children, dance and music classes for girls, a woodworking club for boys in the church basement, bazaars, picnics, and weekly afternoon teas featuring homemade bread. In 1934, it hired a full-time chatelaine, and in 1935 established itself as a self-governing community centre in its own right, still chaired by the redoubtable and faithful Mrs. Hines. By this time, it was serving 50 core families in the neighbourhood, with the afternoon tea gatherings averaging an attendance of 40. In both 1934 and 1935, the wife of the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Mrs. H.A. Bruce, requested that for her birthday party, the women and children of the Little Trinity Housekeeping Centre be her guests at a party at Government House. The centre closed its doors in 1939, mainly because its chatelaine, Miss Kate Miles, was moving out of town. As the Globe's Women's Page columnist described the community's reaction, the lament has not been for any material benefit that might have accrued to the 50 families making up the centre's family, but of the loss of the home-like atmosphere which was there for whoever chose to partake of it, day or night. That's not the only interesting alternative use of this house. Come and see us at Doors Open to see who else lived here and what we use it for now.